which you've been reading for a few weeks now. And who remembers the Olympic doll video we watched? Okay, quite a few of you. So, comparing and contrasting the two, what would you say they both had in common? David? Okay, they had Jews in it. What else? Angelina?
They both involve when Hitler was president.
Okay, what was that time called? He wasn't president, he was just a ruler. But the Holocaust. Great. So they both involved around the Holocaust. So what can we say the differences these two have? Trey?
One of them has dolls,
One of them has what?
the dolls.
The dolls? Okay, so one of them has the dolls. What else can we say?
One of them tells about what children went through during the Holocaust.
Well, I think they both kind of did. So that would be more of a similarity, right?
Yeah.
So in Number of the Stars, it was mainly about the opposite side, not what the Jews were going through. Even though Ellen was a major character in the book, it was more of what Anne Marie was feeling at the time with her friends and everything. And then with the Olympic doll, the lady was saying what she went through in the Holocaust, being in the concentration camp. So that was kind of the difference that the two had. Okay? So starting it off, what is an allegory?
Anyone ever heard that word?
Anyone wanna take a guess? The main idea? Not exactly.
Story with the moral and with characters are used as symbols.
Oh, where did you find
Good job
that?
using
In
the
your-
dictionary.
That works. Thank you. That kind of helps me out. So it's like a symbol. It's a moral of a story, what the story would mean. So raise your hand if you've seen The Wizard of Oz or read the book. Okay. Okay. So an example of this would be the lion. The lion shows courage. That's what his symbol was. That was the meaning of him. And if you've seen the movie WALL-E, the whole allegory of that would be trying to save Earth, trying to save the life on Earth. So that would be kind of an example of what allegories would be. So going back to Number the Stars, how does Number the Stars lead us to think that this was during the Holocaust? The Nazi? Okay, yes, it has Nazi soldiers in it. Yes. The Nazis? Okay, so that was probably the biggest.
Because on one of the chapters, the soldiers came into enemy's house and was thinking of the Wilsons and trying to find them. If Ellen was one of the Wilsons.
Yep, because Ellen was Jewish and they were trying to find the Jewish people. So that was probably one of the biggest things, the Nazis and the Jewish people in this story. And then explain why you think the Jewish people didn't fight back. Jody.
Because the Nazis were greater than them.
They were
had
greater.
soldiers and they had more weapons.
I love how you said that. They were greater. They had more. So if we were at school or in your home and someone who thought they had greater authority came in, you would kind of back down from them. You wouldn't try to overthrow them because there would be too many of them to overcome, right? So that was probably one of the main reasons that they didn't fight back, because it was harder for them. So I'm going to be reading the book called Terrible Things. And just by looking at the cover, what do you think this book is going to be about? Terrible things, maybe a rabbit, the Holocaust,
Dangerous things.
dangerous things that happen. Chauncey?
The terrible things that happen to people in the Holocaust.
Okay. So I've heard a lot of good things about the Holocaust, about terrible things that happen.
The point of view of the Jewish people.
The Jewish people. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and read and see what's going to happen. So to open up, it says, in Europe during World War II, many people looked the other way while terrible things happened. They pretended not to know that their neighbors were being taken away and locked in concentration camps. They pretended not to hear their cries for help. The Nazis killed millions of Jews and others in the Holocaust. If everyone had stood together at the first sign of evil, would the Standing up for what you know is right is not always easy, especially if the one you face is bigger and stronger than you. It is easier to look the other way, but if you do, terrible things can happen. Okay? In the clearing in the woods, it was home to the small forest creatures. The birds and squirrels shared the trees, the rabbits and porcupines shared the shade beneath the trees, and the frogs and fish shared the cool brown waters of the forest pond. They were content until the day the terrible things came. Little Rabbit saw their terrible shadows before he saw them. They stopped at the edge of the clearing, and their shadows blotted out the sun. We have come for every creature with feathers on its back, the terrible things thundered. We don't have feathers, the frogs said. Nor we, said the squirrels. Nor we, said the porcupines. Nor we, said the rabbits. The little fish leapt from the water to show the shine of their scales, but the birds twittered nervously in the tops of trees. Feathers! They rose in the air and screamed away into the blue of the sky. But the terrible things had brought their terrible nets and flung them high and caught the birds and carried them away. The other forest creatures talked nervously among themselves. Those birds were always too noisy, Old Porcupine said. Good riddance, I say. There's more room in the trees now, the squirrels said. Why did the terrible things want the birds? The little rabbit said. What's wrong with feathers? We mustn't ask, Big Rabbit said. The terrible things don't need a reason. Just be glad it wasn't us they wanted. Now there were no birds to sing in the clearing, but life went on almost as before until the day the terrible things came back. Little Rabbit heard the thump of their terrible feet before they came into sight. We have come for every bushy-tailed creature who lives in the clearing, the terrible things thundered. We have no tails, said the frogs. Nor do we, not real tails, the porcupine said. The little fish leapt from the water to show the smooth shine of their fin tails, and the rabbits turned their rumps so the terrible things could see for themselves. Our tails are round and furry, they said. By no means are they bushy. The squirrels chittered their fear and ran high into the treetops, but the terrible things swung their terrible nets higher than the squirrels could run and wider than the squirrels could leap, and they caught them all and carried them away. Those squirrels were greedy, Big Rabbit said, always storing away things for themselves, never sharing. But why did the terrible things take them away? Little Rabbit said. Do the terrible things want the clearing for themselves? No, they have their own place, Big Rabbit said. But terrible things don't need a reason. Just mind your own business, Little Rabbit. We don't want them to get mad at us. Now there were no birds to sing or squirrels to chitter in the trees, but life in the clearing went on almost as before until the day the terrible things came back. So do we kind of see a pattern of what's happening? Little Rabbit heard the rumble of their terrible voices. We have come for every creature that swims, the terrible things said, or the terrible things thundered. Oh, we can't swim, the rabbit said quickly. And we can't swim, the porcupine said. The frogs dived deep in the forest pool, and ripples spiraled like corkscrews on the dark brown water. The little fish darted this way and that in the streaks of silver. But the terrible things threw their terrible nets down into the depths and dragged up the dirty frogs and the shining fish and carried them away. Why did the terrible things take them? Little Rabbit asked. What did the frogs and the fish do to them? Probably nothing, Big Rabbit said. But terrible things don't need a reason. Many creatures dislike frogs. lumpy, slimy things. And fish are so cold and unfriendly, they never talk to any of us. Now, there were no birds to sing, no squirrels to chitter, no frogs to croak, no fish to play in the forest pool. A nervous silence filled the clearing, but life went on almost as usual until the day the terrible things came back. Little rabbits smelled their terrible smell before they came into sight. The rabbits and the porcupines looked everywhere except at each other. We have come for every creature that sprouts quills, the terrible things thundered. The rabbits stopped quivering. We don't have quills, they said, fluffing their soft white fur. The porcupines bristled with all of their strength, but the terrible things covered them with curl of their terrible nets, and the porcupines hung in them like flies in a spider's web as the terrible things carried them away. Those porcupines were always bad-tempered, Big Rabbit said shakily. Prickly, stickly things. This time, Little Rabbit didn't ask why. By now, he knew the terrible things didn't need a reason. The smell still filled the clearing, though the terrible things had gone. I liked it better when there were all kinds of creatures in our clearing, he said. And I think we should move. What if the terrible things come back? Nonsense, Big Rabbit said. Why should we move? This has always been our home, and terrible things won't come back. We are the white rabbits. It can't happen to us. What do you think is going to happen? If it's going to happen to them, take them away. As day followed peaceful day, Little Rabbit thought Big Rabbit must be right, until the day the terrible things came back. Little Rabbit saw the terrible gleam of their terrible eyes through the forest darkness, and he smelled the terrible smell. We have come for any creature that is white, the terrible things thundered. There are no white creatures here but us, Big Rabbit said. We have come for you, the terrible things said. The rabbits scampered in every direction. Help! They screamed. Somebody help! But there was no one left to help, and the big circling nets dropped over them, and the terrible things carried them away. All but Little Rabbit, who was little enough to hide in a pile of rocks by the pond, and smart enough to stay so still, the terrible things thought he was a rock himself. When they had all gone, Little Rabbit crept into the middle of the empty clearing. I should have tried to help the other rabbits, he thought. If only we creatures had stuck together, it could have been different. Sadly, Little Rabbit left the clearing. He'd go tell the other forest creatures about terrible things. He hoped someone would listen. So thinking of the book, what do you think the terrible things represented?
Nazis.
The Nazis. And what do you think the animals represented? Raise your hand. Chauncey? The Jews. Okay. So why do you think the terrible things came? Gabrielle?
Because they wanted the clearing to themselves.
You think they wanted the clearing to themselves?
Yeah, they didn't want no rabbit. They want no animals. They wanted the clearing.
No animals? Do we all agree with Javiel's thought? They wanted the clearing for themselves?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
They wanted their dogs.
You said what?
Huh?
What'd you say?
I told her why else do you think?
Why else? Well, that's the question. Jessica, you have something to add?
That they came to basically get rid of them because they didn't like them.
You think they just didn't like them? That could be a good answer. So right now we're going to play Kahoot. I don't want everyone to rush. We already have our teams and we should be in them now. If we're not, go ahead and move to your group very quietly.
Yes, but it has to move back at the end of the food. Yes, because you were yelling.